What is going on, guys? Corrosive Bullet here. Today we're going to be talking about what a potential set 3 ban list or restricted list would look like. That's not to say that there's going to be one. It's possible that we won't get any sort of ban list or restricted list for set 3, but considering that we had one last set, and there's some discussion about certain cards in this particular meta that may get hit if they were to do one. This is more just a thought experiment and kind of talking about things. So the way I want to kind of go about doing this is I pulled up the Dragon Ball Super Card Game website to actually go through and see their actual reasonings for why stuff in set 2 got restricted, and then we'll see what we can kind of apply that to in terms of stuff that I would see in this format, in set 3 format, and what that would kind of look like. And so, some of it's part of my personal thoughts, some of it is just seeing discussions from other creators, other players, and just more so this is just an open discussion type of deal. You guys can share your thoughts and comments down below in the comments section. Let me know what you guys think or what you guys would want to see in terms of something getting hit. But this is more so just, you know, just kind of, we're going to talk things out and just kind of have a discussion about it. So alright, so going over set 2 stuff, we're going to go through set 2 stuff and talk about what their reasonings are for why some of these cards got hit, right? And then we'll go into the set 3 meta and kind of talk about what kind of falls in line with their reasonings from set 2. So Roshi, specifically, they say on the website that this card's skill lets the player adjust their life cards, making it easier to control the awakening timing, along with the cost reduction for extra cards, greatly affecting the ability to deliver a final decisive blow late in the game. As a result, the frequency of red decks has increased too much, so to help balance out its strong influence on the game environment, we decided to designate this as a ban card. That makes sense, right? Top Coup was the #1 deck in set 2. It was a tier 1 format, or tier 0 format. I think I got that terminology right. And everybody was running Top Coup. And the reasoning here is sound, you know? Like, he's a Self-Awakener that you don't have to do the Self-Awakening for, but just playing him for 1 energy and reducing the cost of a red card by 1, like, went a really, really long way. This allowed your Kamehamehas to be played for free. It allowed Glimpse to be a 1 cost that gave you 25,000 power and a card back from drop. And, you know, just the Self-Awakening aspect of Roshi alone, too, was able to give you an extra card in hand as well. So if you were at one final life on your opponent, or they were at 2 and you had Double Striker on board, you were sitting at like 3 life, you could play this guy. He's combo power on board. You can pull it from life, which is an extra card in hand. So you're replacing the Roshi, essentially. And then you play Glimpse for 1 and get a card back from drop, which was just another card in hand. So all in all, you got 3 cards. You got 3 cards worth of value for just 2 energy, essentially. It was a very strong card, and it makes sense why this card was played. Was just the fact that the utility that Roshi offered really did escalate red to the point where it was just that aggressive. And it just made for a very unfun format in that regard. Now, in terms of like if I would like to see Roshi come back, I think if set 4, there's nothing like crazy going on in set 4, I wouldn't mind seeing Roshi come back as like a limited card in any particular way. I think the meta's in a really good spot right now, all things considered. Blue is doing really good this set. Green is a little on the back burner, but Droids is really strong. Yellow could definitely use some more support, I think. But, I mean, Yellow Vegeta went undefeated at Bandai Cards Fest. So, I mean, there's potential with Yellow, too, depending on what they get in set 4, to actually, like, stand tall and not actually suffer. So, I don't know. I think Roshi, I think, for the set 2 format made sense to be banned. But I think it's possible for this guy to come back as like a limited card later down the line, especially if you only limit him to 1 or 2. Then we need to talk about Reen. So on their website, they say Reen, which has Double Strike, when combined with the leader skill of the Top Coup, can be played for just 1 cost, which lets the player go on a rampage-like attack. In most conditions, the defending player greatly becomes greatly limited in options too, and must maintain their life cards at a certain level, which greatly decreases the chances to win. And that's why they banned that. This makes sense, you know, because you would couple this card with the Roshi. You would couple this card with the Roshi, with the Glimpse, with getting the card from drop, pulling from life off the Roshi. So you would basically pay, you would discard a card and pay and be able to play her for 1. Then you would play a Roshi, so that's 2 energy, to pull a card to life to replace the Roshi, and then you can play Glimpse for 1. So for 3 energy, you got a double striker, and at maybe 15, 20 extra combo power with the Roshi on board and the card you pulled from life. Then you got Glimpse for an extra energy, so that's 3 energy. She's now a 45k swinger that's pulling a card from drop, which is a potential another 10k. So take all of that into account on top of, depending on how big your hand size is. Reen could easily hit like 100,000 power on a swing for 3 energy, which is really like strong, really crazy. And then depending on what energy pool you were kind of at, like Reen could also double Glimpse. So it was just a strong combo, and that's why she kind of got banned in that regard. Just very aggressive for very cheap cost, and that just makes sense, you know? It makes sense for why she got banned in that regard. Then we got Kefla, who was restricted and wasn't banned, and this was their reasoning for Kefla. Being able to play this card multiple times in a match using the leader skill of the top coup gives the player a clear advantage. It has a powerful on-play effect, making it stable, and at the same time has good synergy to progress the game, which results in more players than anticipated using it and battles becoming one-sided. We're designating this card as a restricted card. And, you know, to that extent, they're right. They're absolutely right. You could play her for 1 energy off a top coup. She replaced herself on play, and then you could play a card for free, which a lot of times, more than not in top coup, it was the 3-cost Kefla, which drew, so that's a 20k swinger that also replaces itself. So you basically were able to play 2 cards on board for 1 energy and replace those cards in hand. And then in certain matchups, you were able to see this card be played twice. You'd be able to get it off the leader effect, and then you would also be able to pay 4 energy to get a second one played. Her being limited made sense. I am of the mindset that in order not to kill top coup, which unfortunately top coup did get killed, I would have said that Kefla probably should have been limited to 2, but nonetheless, she got limited to 1 because of how oppressive she was, because of how fast she was able to build up the board, and how just being able to kind of play the swings the way that she did, like it made sense, right? Just that makes absolute sense. So, but that's all from the set 2 meta. Now, how can we apply this to what's going on in set 3 with some of the current stuff going on in the meta right now? So let's talk about Pilaf. Pilaf was a set 1 card, and during the set 1 meta, Pilaf wasn't really like that crazy of a card. Yes, he was able to pick himself up. He was able to get recur cards back in the hand. And in set 1, it wasn't really all that crazy because blue was in a position where blue was one of the lesser formats in that set. Blue was one of the weaker decks to play because green was so strong. Red was a solid option. Yellow was a pretty solid option set 1. And Ginyu just played so wide, like it didn't really matter at that point. Pilaf just wasn't doing enough for blue at the time to really warrant any sort of like ban at the time. And even in set 2, like blue got better in set 2, but it wasn't like blue wasn't like top dog and wasn't like able to stand against like green in a similar vein that like red was able to combat green in that regard. So like blue was still kind of like on the lower end of the format in set 2. But going into set 3, Pilaf being able to pull himself, if you see your entire playset and you combo all your playset off, in the latter end, in the latter end of matches with blue, you could easily play all of your Pilafs to get them all back on board. And then, so let's take into context like Vegeta, right? You got like 7 energy in hand, or 7 energy, 8 energy. In the last, if your opponent's down at 1, right? If your opponent's down to 1 or even 2, with Vegeta, with Pilaf, you can play Pilaf, get Pilaf, then do it again and again and again until you have all your Pilafs. So just by doing that, you're already at least 30,000 combo power off of that. On the final Pilaf you play, you can pull the 1-cost Bulma and play the 1-cost Bulma to boost up your Vegeta, and that's an additional 20,000 combo power. The fact that for 4 energy, you're able to get 50,000 power worth of combo off of that, you know, off of that chain is ridiculous. It's crazy. And Blue is in such a good place right now. Blue is probably one of the best decks to be running at the moment, just because of how much support they ended up getting in set 3. And because of where they actually stand now, a lot of that does attribute to what Pilaf is doing in the game. Just being able to get endless combo power when you absolutely need it, or even like aggressive power when it comes to like Vegeta. Even in stuff like Zamasu and Deadku can run Pilaf to get a lot of the Satan City stuff back, which is crazy. The 2-cost Hercule, is it 2 cost? 1 cost? The Hercule that can minus the cost by 2 is really good in Deadku. So, I mean, Pilaf is doing so much for Blue. I think Pilaf at this point, because of where Blue is kind of sitting in the format, I think Pilaf should probably get hit. Now, I don't think Pilaf should be banned. I don't think Pilaf is doing that much to really be able to warrant a ban. And we know, based off of the last ban list, that they're not looking to errata cards. They're just looking to either ban or limit or restrict in some capacity. So I think Pilaf should probably be limited down to 2. Limiting him to 1 really kind of hurts him, but at the same time, like, we also got like Hercule in black that can't pick himself up, so limiting Pilaf down to 1 wouldn't be the worst thing, I don't think, either. But I think keeping, if we limit Pilaf down to 1, I think that actually cripples Blue by a lot. And you can make the argument that that's maybe just, you know, card construction and like how Bandai decides to create their cards. Like if one card affects the deck that much, then that's just bad design on Bandai's part. You can maybe make that argument. But still, I would probably say Pilaf should be limited. Preferably for me, probably to 2. That way you can only pick up 1 of himself and it doesn't hurt you that much. And then that de-incentivizes people to actually play Pilafs back-to-back, because otherwise you can lose your Pilafs. But that's just me. You guys can let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, I think Pilaf is a really strong card at this point in the current meta, and I really think that he should probably be hit. Then we look at Android 17 and 18, and Android 17 and 18 is basically the Kefla of green. What I mean by that is, if we look at the reasoning for why Kefla got banned, right? Kefla was able to be played multiple times in a match because off of leader skill, right? Now, obviously, these guys cannot be played off of leader skill. However, the pace at which the ramp droids here are able to be played is very similar to what Kefla is able to do. The fact that you can, with proper setup, if you play this with the proper setup and you play it on curve, you can play 17 and 18 for 1 energy. 1. You're taking 2 android cards from your energy, moving them to your drop, and if you have a android card sitting in your drop, you're able to take all three of those cards, especially the ones you move to the drop from your energy, back to your energy pool in active mode. So you're essentially not only ramping like you're supposed, like Green wants to do, but you're also playing this card for 1, and you can still play more stuff off of your active energy pool. So in the early game on turn 4, you see this played. They go up to 5, but they have 3 active energy, so you could see maybe a Krillin get played to kind of find Android 18, or a extra card that you kind of need to either help ramp or play offensive or defensive. But in the mid game, by the time that Androids gets up to 7 energy, or 6 energy, 7 energy, you can play this card back to back and essentially get 2 of these on board for 2 energy and still having 4 active energy up when you're playing them. Which is crazy. The fact that you can just play cards like that and still have that much active energy open to be able to play more stuff. And so while this card was needed in the Android 17 deck, and I still think it's needed now, because without this card, I think once again Androids just gets crippled without this card. I think that similar to how Kefla is able to make the card stable, is able to it's like you're building up your board, so your board is stable by keeping your board filled. It has good synergy to progress the game for green, because you're ramping energy while also barely spending energy to play this card. And then obviously it becomes one-sided, because now you can have an Android deck that has 4 cards on board that's able to swing wide, and then the following turn they're able to play the big like boss monsters, which are already hard enough to get over. So yeah, I think because of the reasoning from set 2 for Kefla, I think the reasoning for that also applies to this, and therefore I think that Android 17 and 18 should also be limited. Now, that being said, similar to Pilaf, they're good, but limiting them to 1 really cripples the deck. Because the reason why Androids is so good is because they build up so fast. So if you take away that momentum, it really does cripple and hurt the deck, especially when there's other stuff in the current format that is able to kind of contest Android still, despite them being top green deck in the format. So I think that, once again, Android 17 and 18 here probably need to be limited to 2. This will allow players to still keep the pace at which they want to ramp, but but you can't make back-to-back plays with them and build up the energy and at the same pace. It would hurt their pacing a little bit, but not by much. And you would still get 1 to 2 swings off of playing them, depending on when you decide to play those 2 copies that would be limited. I think that would be fine for this particular, format, personally. But yeah. And then we go on to the final card that I have for the list, and that is 8-cost Broly. And very similar to Kefla or would it be more so? Would it be more Kefla or would it be more Reen? It might be more Reen, maybe. Yeah, so I think it's probably more like Reen than Kefla. You can maybe argue the Kefla talking points onto Broly, but I think it's more so in line with what the Reen reasoning is. So playing Broly, obviously this is a boss card. This is the card that you want to get to in green to be able to play and move the game over into your favor in green. And that's fine. I think Broly as a card is a great endgame boss card. That said, though, similar to the Kefla, the fact that you are able to play this multiple times in a game in green becomes very hard for your opponent to actually go up against this, and it makes the game feel extremely one-sided when you're able to have multiples of these on board, because removing 1 Broly is already hard enough for some decks. Beerus has to commit a lot of resources to removing this guy off board 1 time. Blue is also able to do it, but it's from 1 card, and that's the Zeno. And that takes all of Blue's resources to remove this off board. And if your opponent has a second one, that makes it really hard. Same with the Beerus aspect. Beerus takes a lot to have to remove 1 of these off board. If 2 are able to stay on board, it's impossible for Beerus to really get back to the pace that he wants, to the point that he kind of wants to be at in a match. Green, I mean, obviously green is like the obvious answer to this in a lot of ways, because Broly Wars exist. You play Broly to kill Broly, and then your opponent plays Broly to kill Broly. And that's just not a fun... I've always hated that. I always thought that was really bad game design when all you and your opponent are doing in a mirror is just KOing each other's single boss monster. Like, it's very redundant. So yeah. And then yellow, I mean, obviously has the secret rare. that can really like shut down these cards. But right now, yellow isn't like avidly played in the client as often as much as you want to, as much as I would want to see. I would like to see yellow be played more, but I don't see yellow nearly enough. And then obviously black has like the double striker that can be oppressive on leader, but also KO a card by comboing 2 cards, which is also really good. I mean, there's answers to this card, but it's not, a lot of the answers to this card are not fast enough to be able to react to this card. In most cases, your opponent is going to be able to play 2 Brolys before you're able to do anything against the one that's already on board. But I mean that it's also a two-sided coin here as well. Like we go into, you know, the Reen aspect of it. In most conditions, the defending player becomes greatly limited in options and must maintain their life cards at a certain level, which greatly decreases the chances to win. That's the reasoning for Reen. And so you can apply that logic to Broly here. The fact that you can play him, he replaces himself in hand, and he swings for 45,000 twice is really strong. And if, like I said, it's already hard enough that you have to deal with one of these on board, but if your opponent is able to get 2 on board and you weren't able to take care of the first one, then it really becomes extremely one-sided. There's no way you can really get around it. And there's not enough removal in the game to actually get this guy off board. Like at least in most matchups. Again, red struggles against Broly. Will struggle against Broly to an extent. Blue only has 1 out for Broly, really. Green is itself. Yellow is secret rare. But depending on what deck you're playing against with yellow, like droids plays way too fast, and more times than not, you're not probably going to see your secret rare too often to really get out of this. You could freeze them, but I mean, you guys get what I'm saying. You guys should be able to understand what I'm trying to get here. So, similar to Kefla in the fact that, it's got a good on-play effect. It's got a good effects on board. And obviously playing him multiple times in a match is a clear advantage for Kefla. And then for Reen, the fact that, you know, the defending player becomes greatly limited in options and must maintain their life cards because of this guy, I think Broly deserves to also be limited to an extent as well. The only reason I say that Broly should probably be limited, though, is due to the fact that Green really needs its boss monsters. Green really needs its boss monster options. People want to make an argument for Cell. I've heard some talk about Cell getting limited because of playing back-to-back Cells is dangerous in the Cell deck, but Cell kind of needs that. The thing is that Cell wants to do a very specific thing, and that one specific thing that he does is really good for Cell. So if you were to limit or hurt Cell in that, if you were to limit Cell or ban Cell from being played, that cripples the Cell deck, and you can't do that. Same thing with this Broly. I think removing this Broly completely hurts Green a lot, and you can't remove the thing that Green wants to build up to be able to play. So I think for the case of Broly, I think Broly should be limited to 1 or 2 as well. Just because, again, he's an offensive powerhouse. Multiple of him on board is really hard to get over for a lot of decks. And again, like he just controls the game. He controls the game once he's out there. So I think I made my points for what I think a ban list could look like. I think a lot of the points I made really does apply based off of what the last ban list was. You guys can let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree. In terms of like yellow and black does not really have a lot going for it right now in terms of like stuff that I think needs to be hit. It's only got 1 set worth of cards. Maybe come set 4, maybe there's some stuff that might need to get limited or banned potentially, depending on what's in set 4. But as of right now, black does not have enough options or really good options to warrant a limit or a ban of any kind. And then yellow is not in the greatest of places right now because of the way the current format is sitting. You can make some yellow decks work, but they all kind of run the same like build in the same package for the most part. And yeah, like there's a reason that like Yellow Vegeta at Bandai Card Fest right now is undefeated, and it's because of its particular build, but it's the only yellow deck that placed in the top 16. So most of the other decks are blue Vegeta, so you kind of have to look at look at it from a numbers game. Is that there's one yellow to like 8 blues and like 3 reds and like 5 greens. Like it's a different animal. It's a different beast for yellow. Yellow has to work a lot harder to get where it needs to be, in my opinion. Not to say yellow is in a bad spot or it's a bad like color, but it needs more. But let me know what you guys think below. I've been rambling these last couple minutes here, and I apologize for that. But that's what I think a ban list should look like for. That's what I think a ban list should look like for set 3 if we were to get it. If it was going to be announced, if they were going to apply a ban list, we would be getting that sooner rather than later. Ban list for set 2 came like a week or two before its actual like implementation, which was July 11th, I think was what it was. So considering that we're about a month in for set 3, or we're about a month in for set 3. So if we were to get a ban list, it would probably be announced within the next like week or two, maybe 3. But we'll see, I guess. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that subscribe button, like the video. It really does help to support the channel. We are on our way to 200 subscribers. We are so close. Would really appreciate the support and helping us get there. But all the support and love you guys give to the channel, I greatly do appreciate it. You guys are awesome. So I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace.